Good morning, Appliance Alliance group. We've got Andrew and Bob with us this morning. EJ's in the background. He's driving right now, and TK couldn't be on with us this morning. So today we're going to talk about some procedures and some things that we struggle with. Why don't you start us off, Andrew?
Okay, sure. Good morning. My name is Andrew Soper. Did you mean start us off with a prayer, Mike? Because if that's the case, I'd love to.
Go ahead.
Sure. This will be my first time to pray in many years. So let's get ready for this one, guys. All right. Dear Father, thank you for letting us wake up this morning with extra people to help do this morning grind. This will be the first time that there's not a normal cast member to join, so please give us your blessing to hold up to their honor. Dear Father, please allow all of the gentlemen that are watching and the folks that are watching to recognize that we are trying to help. We are not the bad guys up here, and we only want to do what you're allowing us to put in front of them. So, dear Father, give everybody the strength to avoid any conflict, whether it be on the road, whether it be with a customer, whether it be in their own lives. And in your son's name we pray.
Amen.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. That was great. All right.
We got
a bunch of people chiming in here.
Yeah, got a few guys already. A few
Mike
people.
Reed.
Good morning, Mike. Kyle, the YouTuber. I tried to get on YouTube and type hello, good morning, and it did not take my comment. At any rate, yeah. So the idea was the systems behind replicating success, right? It's the idea that what can we do to avoid the bad things that inherently happen if you don't have a system in place. And there's a few of them right off the top. Bob mentioned one that is obviously a no-brainer. Let's go with the employee handbook. What can we use in our employee handbook that helps avoid conflict? What kind of conflicts does an employee handbook help avoid? Why did you adopt one, Bob?
Yeah, when I started doing this, I just started hiring. I hired a guy. I hired a technician, and then I hired an office manager, and I didn't have an employee handbook. And as long as I had pretty good guys working for me, things went pretty well. I started to have all kinds of. I had problems. I had problems with guys not. Got problems with guys, showing up late. I had one guy, I showed up to my shop and I had a little drum set upstairs, and I came into work one morning and he's upstairs playing my drums, and I'm like, so I don't know. So there was a lot of things that I didn't know how to run a business. And so when I kept going to these ASTIs every year, and one year I think the guys who had the service company solutions booth, they sold me or gave me at a discount or something one of these little SOP things that they were giving out, and I needed that. I needed it for an employee handbook idea, how to make it. I'd never done it before, and so these were like templates that another company had used. And I used the template, and I modified it because they were Word documents, so I could modify it to my own. I didn't use all the documents. I used some of them, but at least it got me a start. And so now I have something that's actually an employee handbook. It's not always, it's a work in progress. It's always incomplete, and it doesn't cover everything, but it's got me some of these basic things so that when I have a problem with an employee, I can sit down with them and I can say, hey, look, this is what it says here in the thing that you signed when you came here, and you're not doing that. And so these are basic things for people who have had employees for a long time or who have had this experience, but it was new to me. So,
that's every company, no matter what type of company you are, has to have some kind of a procedure in place for different things, for multiple things, right? So, we do so many things in our businesses as business owners. we're doing the things, wearing many hats, and managing multiple people in some cases. So when you start doing all of those things, it can get overwhelming. And those repeatable things that you do, you may not do enough to remember it, what you did the first time. And then many months later, maybe you do the same thing and you're like, how the heck did I do that? So I do that in my own business, and it's like, I knew I should have wrote that down, and then that's when you start and, creating a document as a reminder of the steps of what you did, so that you don't run into that again. Because it's like, once you start repeating some patterns, that's when you need that procedure, right?
Hey, Bob, not to put you on the spot, but I'm curious if there are any examples of when you were able to consult that SOP, that employee handbook, and you were like, hey, you know what? You're supposed to have an extra day of vacation this year, or anything trivial like that. Has it helped you?
Well, that's a good question. I can't think of a specific time where I actually had to pull out the employee handbook and show it to someone. But one thing I have learned is when I first started having employees, I would just like when something wasn't going right or wasn't going the way I wanted it to, or they weren't performing properly or something, I would just sit down and kind of chat with them, by standing around a washing machine or something like that. And then things wouldn't improve. And then I had like no recourse. So I would go talk to these other people who had been in business longer. And they're like, no, you got to document this stuff. You got to sit down, you got to tell them, and you got to write it on a piece of paper, and you have to have them sign it. And that has been very helpful to me. I've had employees in the past that were just not, they weren't performing to the standards that I needed to perform to. And a really fascinating thing, what happened to me is, like, if you're really clear about this thing and really deliberate about it and show it to them and they sign it and it continues to happen, sometimes those guys have worked themselves out of the company. I haven't even had to fire them. They're just like, oh,
I'm not making it.
This is what they expect you to do around here. I don't really want that. I want to go somewhere else to work. I'm like, great, that's good for you because you're not helping us, and that's good for our customers because you're not helping them, and it's good for me because you're not helping me. So everybody wins if you leave. And I don't have to fire him. There's no hurt feelings. It just that's the way it's worked out.
That's funny. As far as performance reports, I know that that's not necessarily a standard operating procedure, but it is a good thing to do as procedures. We used to go through maybe a biannual performance report, and then a once a year that was just really extensive, and you got the whole gambit of your numbers for the last year. And as a tech, I thought that was one of the best days of the year, was to be able to see exactly what I did right, what I did wrong. We could track everything to the point where I would know, hey, you're not doing well on your labor bills, or you're not doing well on your sales, or you're not doing well on these particular types of machines. You're not selling any of these Whirlpool top load washers. What's going on here? Why aren't you making any money on these machines? And those were reports that I could see whenever I wanted, but especially that one time a year when we actually spelled it all out. Do either of you have systems in place to do things like that?
I do in my own business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it monthly, bi-monthly?
It depends. It depends on the situation. I mean, my guys in my agency, we've been together for a very long time. My people, I don't have a rotating door. It's very, very infrequent that I have to either get rid of somebody. It's been many years since I've had to get rid of somebody. But when I bring on a new person, that's where these procedures really shine, because they become my training manuals. Not just for accountability in employee handbook type of situations to where it's more policy related, but when it comes to procedure related things, those procedures become the training, and they help a lot. And my employees love those, because it's the policies are accountability, not just for the employees. They're definitely more as well for the employer. So they work both ways. So the accountability is on both sides, right? And as much as you can go to an employee and kind of throw policies in their face, when they're not doing their job, if you're not doing your job as an owner, and they can also do the same thing. So you got to keep that in mind. It works both ways. So when you create these policies, you've got to make sure that you're adhering to them too, not do as I say, not as I do type mentality. And sometimes that's hard for us when we're used to doing things our own way, and we're just used to going out and doing the work, and we don't follow policies because we're making it up as we go along. And once you take that shift into procedures and structured policy, it makes it's a hard thing to do, and it does take time. And policies and procedures are a living, breathing thing. Like Bob said, they're ever changing, and you tweak them, and you have to review them on at least a yearly basis. I'd say that would probably be the farthest out that you should really look at your policies and review them. The best thing is when you review policies, the best absolute time is right before you're going to hire a new employee. Because you've got to make sure that it's up to snuff, and that new employee is going to get the correct information that hasn't changed. And if it has changed, you need to update that. And your current employees, if you're running a multi-employee organization, you should definitely have those employees helping you update those policies and procedures, and update new or create new procedures, and make sure that that's always a growing library within your business.
Sure, you got to adapt to new things, otherwise you get left in the weeds.
Right.
One
And the
thing that's
best
not
people to
new.
do it are the people that are actually doing the work. They're the best ones to actually tweak those policies and procedures.
One controversial adaptation to our world, it's been around for 15 years or better, but the Blue Book pricing standard guidelines. Bob, are you familiar with Blue Book?
Yeah, we are currently using the Service Company Solutions, Blue Book. I know there's more than one flat rate pricing guide out there, but that's the one we're using.
So has flat rate pricing helped improve your profit margins? Has that been a way to replicate success?
Oh, most definitely. So it was the way I started success. For 15, 18 years on my own, kind of doing time and materials or whatever. And when I adopted the Blue Book, I actually, my funny story is the first job I went out and used the Blue Book on, I was charging, I don't know, 40, 60% more. It was a Whirlpool direct drive pump or something like that, or an oven igniter. And I was like, I got $260 or whatever it was for an oven igniter, $230. And I was like, a job I used to charge $140, $150 for. And I almost was like, you know what? I can't do this. I can't charge this much. I got to hire someone to go out and charge these prices because I can't do it. And so that actually got me into hiring my first employee. It's a funny story, but so that has been, and what they told me at my first ask is you need to get something to manage your business, some sort of managing software. So we use Rawsware because back when I started, that was one of the only ones you could get. Now there's many, many different ones to choose from, but I had to get something to manage, this. So between that and the Blue Book, I've been able to onboard employees, train them on those two systems, send them out into the field. They use those systems over and over again. And what I really love about it is we're consistent through the company. It doesn't matter if I'm sending out Dan or Charlie or Alex or Joe, it doesn't matter who I'm sending out. We are, you're going to get the same customer service experience from us because of the standard procedures that we use.
That's awesome. See, that's exactly what I was trying to get into is you've developed consistency and an absolute successful method so you really like Rawsware. Are you still on Rawsware?
Yeah, well, I don't think anybody really likes their dispatching and business managing software all the way. So do I
What do you
really like?
change?
I really like some parts of it, and I don't think I'm going to change because it's going to be impossible to get on my customer database and train on a new system. I like parts of it. Parts of it are frustrating, but I think any the people tell you the same thing about Walkabout. You know, it's. But I like it.
So I came from Rossware, and it is kind of the gold standard. I switched over to a smaller, newer company, and you'll like it a lot more if you go away from it. I know that much.
Okay.
The things that you take for granted are a lot bigger than you realize. Not everybody has the simple things, and although I'll probably never go back to Rossware because everything else will adapt and get better as well. It really is that good. But we were Blue Book and Rossware. That's how I've ran an 18-year career here so far, and it was a very successful pattern. So that's good. We're right on the same page. Do you got non-competes? Do we run non-competes on new hires? I did sign a non-compete with my previous company, and I had to not necessarily jump through hoops, but I had to make sure that I was safe before I decided to go out on my own. And I think that's probably wise to make sure that guys aren't doing side work behind your back. I think moonlighting is kind of a nasty thing to do to your employer, to be honest with you. But what do you think, Bob?
Yeah, I've got a no moonlighting policy, and that's in the employee handbook for sure. As for a non-compete, my understanding is that those are pretty much unenforceable for the most part. I believe there's something in there that says that we don't expect you to open up a new shop in my area after working here. And I can't remember exactly what the wording is, but there's something in there, even though it's probably not enforceable. At least it sets the expectation up. It's like, hey, don't screw me if I'm going to train you, because all the guys that I bring up, I'm training. So if I'm going to train you to be a technician in this business, don't screw me. Don't open up a thing in my own company, in my own business. So, whether I can force it or not, I don't know.
I don't want to go too deep into that rabbit hole, but why a no moonlighting policy? Uh-oh. How do you feel about side work, Mike?
Well, I got a background in the automotive collision industry. And in that industry, when I was a tech, I never signed one of those agreements. And I did a lot of side work. I mean, I basically had a body shop out of my garage, and I was fixing, painting cars and doing all kinds of stuff, but a lot of restoration work on some pretty sweet cars. But I've got mixed feelings about it. Even some of my own employees, they do side work, and it's like, do I want to inhibit them from making a little bit of side money? And I have to look at myself. Why are they doing it? Are they doing it as a help to some friends and family? I think the situation is different for everybody. Or are they doing it to make money and just put food on their table? And if that's the case, then I need to look at why they have to do that as a business owner. Am I not paying them enough? Am I not seeing their value? And, why aren't they referring that and bringing it through the company? So that's a discussion that I need to have with my employees on helping me understand, where they're at and where their thought process is. So if I've had this conversation with my employees a few times, and that feedback can give you a reality check really quick, and they're like, well, if I were to run this through the company, what do I get out of it? And it really can expose some attitudes and figure out where their mindset is, but it can also give you a reality check on how you treat your employees, how you pay your employees. Do they it's a double check on their loyalty as well. So I think it's a really good conversation to have, and it's a big opportunity for us as business owners to get that feedback. And every time that I've had that conversation with my employees, they've appreciated that I actually approached it in that way, and it made the I guess the relationship better. And
Right
I hadn't had a problem where I had to let anybody go over it.
Our side's a little bit different. There's a much higher risk to the rewards that the employee gets because the employee is still directly part of the original company's insurance policies. And insurance policies dealing with electric, water, and gas are significantly higher than maybe a web designer might have to deal with. So there's a little bit of contrast there. It's putting the original employer at a far higher risk. So as far as moonlighting on your side, I'm glad that you see that there's pros and cons. But on our side, there's a lot more cons than there are pros. That's why
Even when I did it in the collision industry, I didn't, it wasn't tied to the company in the same way that you guys would be.
It is. As an employee, you're still tied to that company.
Well, yeah, but I mean, not the liability isn't there as much because you're not doing it with company time and tools and location, where you guys are a service business that goes to people's houses, and that's where the liability transfers over.
Yes. So Bob says he's on Rossware, right? What software are you using?
Yeah, I'm using Rossware for the dispatching and Blue Book for our flat rate price guide.
Do you run SD Mobile as well?
We do, and that's been a fantastic thing. I love that being able to mobilely dispatch texts, and it's just I like what you shared, Andrew. That like if I was to switch over, I would see what all the there's always something to gripe about Rossware for me. The little things. There's just these little annoyances, like I have to click this button 4 times in order to be able to schedule the service call or whatever. But the underlying parts of this thing that I was watching somebody who couldn't do, like their special order process for parts was all really difficult. And it's like, well, that's all built into my software. Mm-hmm. Technician pushes a couple buttons, the information goes back to the office. We know what parts to special order. And so I recently got a real good appreciation for like what you're talking about, those underlying things that are built into the software that because I've never tried anything else, I just take for granted.
How long have you been on SD Mobile?
Probably 5 years, maybe. Okay. Yeah.
Before, how many guys do you have under you?
I got 2 in the road, and I'm trying to hire another shop guy. So.
Gotcha. Are they mobile techs? Do they come into the office?
Well, I have a used appliance shop, so I kind of have. Yeah, they do come into the office from time to time. What we're finding is both of my techs have moved, or one of my techs just moved a considerable distance from the office, so we're seeing them less and less now. So now I'm starting to have all these problems that these other companies are having with dispatched. With like one of my techs, I didn't even see him yesterday. He went from his home to his service calls back home again. He'll be in today though. So
yeah.
So how do you manage communications with all your people? Like do you have weekly meetings? To kind of
we do a lot of. We don't. All we do is text. We basically text each other. With our phones. So, but I know there's much more elegant ways to do that as we grow. We do have a weekly meeting. So one of the new things I started doing was I heard it from EJ or TK or something. It's like we're doing weekly meetings. I'm like, weekly meetings? God, I hate doing my monthly meeting, and we miss it half the time. And I was like, no. It's been really helpful to our company. So we started every Thursday morning now at 8:30. We have a little half-hour meeting. It's my job to sort of set the agenda, to sort of set some sort of and I do a really horrible job at that sometimes. Sometimes we just sit down and I haven't even, I've written the agenda 10 minutes before the meeting or something like that. But, the habit of doing that, I think, is it's been really valuable. We've only been doing it about 2 months now, but I think I'm starting to see a lot more. It's making the company more like a family, like what TK is talking about. That weekly getting together and seeing what's going on. It's really helped me a lot.
So when I first started a long while back, it was daily, right? We all went into the shop, and that was traditional. And then over the years, it started becoming more and more mobile, where guys wouldn't come in as frequently. And then it got to a point where it was only 2 or 3 of us that showed up in the morning, and the other however many guys didn't come because they had different techniques. And I felt like the family aspect of it started to dissipate as less and less people came in the mornings. So I think you're right to do at least an every other week, but a weekly meeting is pretty fantastic. Throw everybody a donut and tell everybody how good or bad they're doing. Okay, right. we had a flood last week. We need to not do that again. This guy got 4 flat tires in the last 6 weeks. What's going on here, buddy? Just anything like that, right?
Yeah.
Do you I started asking that because I was curious if you had any other ways to help with the mobile tech idea, but it sounds like you're kind of hybrid where they come in every couple of days at the most.
Right. Yeah, that's what we're doing right now.
During COVID, did you see them every day, or what wound up happening throughout the hard part of COVID shutdowns?
Yeah, that was more like I was seeing him every day. One of my techs was living just 2 blocks from my shop. The other one was coming. He was still kind of in training almost. So he was coming in every day to do my shop work. So this is a recent thing where my techs aren't coming in as much.
I gotcha.
So have you gotten any feedback on having less time with them?
I don't know. It's in such flux right now that I'm not any feedback. I think actually we're getting more time because we're doing this weekly meeting, so it's bringing the office manager, myself, and my 2 techs in all together. And I think it's better than it was, during COVID. Even when everybody was coming together once a day, we wouldn't sit down with an intentional meeting. It's been a big change for us recently.
Yeah, intention is everything.
Yeah, so I'm on House Call Pro, and I have nothing really bad to say about them, but they are so much different than Rossware SD Mobile that, I could make a bunch of gripes because they are so much different. But now that I've had a few months under my belt, I'm starting to get the hang of it. You had mentioned about special order parts and stuff like that. We can't search by model number or serial number. Can you imagine not being able to search by model number, serial number?
Oh, boy.
You've been using Rossware for a long time.
You mean for your unit information sheets or something like that?
Oh, it actually cost us extra to have a unit information sheet, and then we can't use it to search by customer. So if you don't have a telephone number, a name, or an address, I can't find you in my system.
Okay.
So it's it might sound trivial if you've never had it, but having had that, that's a really big deal.
Yeah.
So House Call Pro, I've nothing against them.
How are you communicating with the SaaS company, whoever your provider is? Are you submitting requests to them, feature requests, and giving them feedback? Because obviously if they don't get that from multiple people, they're not going to implement it.
They're aware.
They may not even care if just a couple of people ask.
Yeah.
But if more people ask for a certain feature, then that bumps it up on their priority for development.
Well, yeah, they are aware of that one. The only other complaint that I can really say is how easy it was to route and map everything through SD Mobile. You could see everything right there from your tablet very quickly. And that's something that it's a longer process for me to do that as well.
Okay.
So just, again, a couple of the small things that turn out to be pretty big when you're trying to implement them.
Yeah. And our experience might be helpful to anyone else who's trying to choose a software, to run their with.
I think the experience that we're trying to convey is there's no perfect system.
Yeah, right. There's no perfect system. So let's take a moment, because I think this is perfect. You're both using different systems. Bob, what do you love about the system you're using? What's the best part of it for you?
You know what popped right into my mind is the fact that these guys, I can call them on the telephone and they pick up the telephone and they help me. And this is system. The way I describe Rossware is it's like the Beverly Hillbillies pickup truck. It's like this thing rolling down the road, and there's a pan on the side and a washboard on the back and the kitchen stove underneath the front seat. And there's everything you could possibly want is in this software, but trying to find it and try to figure out how to work it is a whole different story. And the manual's not fantastic. But every time if I just need to do something, like I did this last year and I can't remember how to do it, I call them up on the phone, someone answers the phone, they lead me through the solution, and they have fantastic customer support. And other than that, I don't have anything to compare it to. It's just what we've always used.
So my comment was going to be, it's huge, right? There are so many things that you can tweak to what you want to do with it. And that's why I think Rossware is as good as it is, because they have the ability to maneuver and tweak and change, and it's huge. I don't know if my immediate comparison is Red Dead Redemption 2. Goofy video game, but nonetheless, that game was so big. You could do anything you wanted if you found the right spot to do it. It was huge. But compare.
What do you like about House Call Pro?
I haven't been on long enough to give you a good answer.
Oh.
It's only been a few months. I can pick apart what I don't like. I don't know that I have anything specific that I'd totally brag on it for. It's relatively easy to use. I'll give it that. I don't have the complications. It's not hard to figure out. And I think that's maybe the best thing about it is it's laid it all out to make it very easy, user friendly.
Yeah, Rossware's got a really steep learning curve in the office, has been my experience. There's a lot of, you need to know function keys. There's a lot of sub menus, and it's a several week process to train a new office manager to even just be able to dispatch calls, much less do all the other stuff.
So early on, we were talking about writing things down. Do you guys actually have a tendency to write things down?
You got one, Mike?
Oh, I write stuff down all the time.
I've been carrying notebooks, and this is how I write things down. It stays in my back pocket.
A lot of my SOPs start just like that, because it's quick. I always got a pad of paper and a pen next to my keyboard, and it's like, all right, I'm taking notes. I'm just going to start doing it. And if I'm on the phone with support, like Bob, you said, you're calling the company and you're asking them to walk you through something. I am trying to actually record that session in some way so I can remember it and then make a procedure out of it later. Or I'm taking a lot of notes, and for me, I've got screen recording software. So if I'm on the phone and they're walking me through how to use their software, I'm recording what I'm doing. And at least I have a screen recording of what I did. So I can actually walk through it again and then watch it and make an SOP out of it.
We're probably getting pretty close to a normal time frame, but Mike, you're probably the best expert on this as far as us three, especially taking a note and turning it into an SOP. Walk us through that.
I am going to have a complete course on doing this from scratch. It's basically it doesn't matter how you do it. It's basically an SOP. All it is notes. It's notes and steps on doing A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's all an SOP is. And they can be as detailed or as generic as you want them to be, or that they have to be. I mean, there's some common sense things that don't need to be in an SOP, right? But imagine if you're going to train somebody. The best thing about an SOP is training somebody who knows nothing about what you do. And you want that SOP to be just detailed enough that you can train the most inexperienced person that you can hire. And that's what the whole thing is about. So you can say, here's the procedure. They should be able to walk through it and at least get from A to Z without too much trouble. So that's how I handle everything. Let's see. I missed that comment.
So yeah, that's a big one. But he's asking, maybe not asking, but stating that he's struggling to find the right fit. So
yeah. So since we're talking about software so much, go ahead, Bob.
Oh, when I came back from SK, I had the exact same problem. I had to just do something right, and it was that from I don't know. You gotta
We're losing you, Bob. You're breaking up a lot. Your connection must be a little weak right now. That's all right. We'll let it catch up, and I'll fill in here for a second. What I was going to say is, if you're going to compare which system is right for your business, every time I approach a new software choice that I need to make a choice on what software to use, the first thing I do is I pull up a spreadsheet, and in the first column, I'll make a list of all my absolute must-haves.
So you're going Venn diagram.
Yep, the software has to have these things at a bare minimum. And I don't get too encroached in all the details and things. And then under that, I'll make a separate list that's my nice haves. It would be nice if it had this as well. But I want my core must haves, because those are business critical features, right? And then at the top, I'll have like 3 or 4 different softwares that I'm evaluating. And then I'll start going through their websites and their feature lists, and I'll start putting an X or an O, in each cell next to it under the columns. If they have it, I'll put an O, and if they don't have it, I'll put an X. And I get pretty elaborate on how I do my spreadsheets with conditional formatting and everything, and it makes them real colorful. But the reason I do that is I'll have to make an SOP and a video and actually show you guys how I do it. Because it's pretty nice when I'm done. I've got a very visual spreadsheet that I can just glance at, and I know which system's the right choice. And for me, the cost is never a deciding factor, ever. It's going to be what ticks the most boxes that I need for my business for it to critically function. And I mean, price is always a factor, right? But it's got to make sense as well. But that's definitely not at the top of my list on deciding factors. I look at the total cost of ownership for a year, whether it's a monthly or yearly subscription, or purchase, whatever it may be. But when you approach it that way, at least exactly what is going to be the best fit for your company.
All that, and you use X's and O's instead of ones and zeros? What kind of software guy are you?
Well, I mean that's the most basic thing, but I use conditional formatting that I've got drop downs in each cell, and depending on what I choose, it actually changes the color of the cell from red to green and so forth.
He's a software guy.
I get pretty elaborate in it. So I mean, I was just trying to explain in a way that's simple.
Hey now,
for those that just wanted, an easy mental visual.
Have you integrated Blue Book into your service desk?
So we've been trying to do this in the last month, and let me tell you something, it's not working very well. Huh. So it's supposed to populate the Blue Book forms into Service Desk, and the freight ends up in the other, and the labor ends up in this, and it's a problem we're working on right now. So it's not seamless. It doesn't work. I think it works better now than it did a year ago, but it doesn't work very well.
So it's not, you're uploading a CSV file like an Excel spreadsheet?
No,
no. How is it imported?
we're supposed to be able to like build the blue book and then show it to the customer, and the customer approves it. And I would like to push a button and see all the fields from the blue book: labor, parts, tax, other, everything, boom, populate into our service desk mobile form that we use to keep track of our revenue. And it's not working very well.
Mm.
That's one thing that House Call Pro does do. It might take a little bit of legwork, but you can generate the lines and be able to actually integrate any pricing model that you would like to. It takes work, but you can get it in there and it'll work properly.
Yeah, we're still manually moving all the numbers from Blue Book into Service Desk, and it's I just hate doing duplication of work like that.
That's a problem. You got to automate as much as possible.
Yeah, well,
especially in this day and age. I mean, the tools are there.
Yeah, so that's what I need to call. That's what I need to call my software company and say, "Hey, could you work on this a little harder, please?"
Yeah.
And don't charge me $10,000 to do it. Just make it happen. That's one of the big complaints, right? Is it costs you like $8,000 to make any major change? It's like a pretty major fee sometimes.
Yeah.
If you have to get somebody involved to come to you, it's a big expense.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, guys. Well, we're running 40 minutes, so
nice
we're going to wrap it up.
All right.
I appreciate you guys coming on. This has been a great conversation. Don't forget to smash that like button if you're on YouTube, and if you're on Facebook, make sure you click that link that's in the description so that you get your name in there and everything. So,
and if you want to be on the morning grind, reach out to EJ or TK and get on the morning grind. We want the more people that can do this, the better. So the better it is for everybody. So
yeah, we want different conversations. So we want you on here. So we definitely want to bring our community on. So make sure that you're reaching out to us.
You saw us. We fumbled through a quick topic that we had just thought of. We weren't sure what we were being put in front of, and we fumbled through the entire 45 minutes. So
yeah,
nothing to be too afraid of.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you later.
Yep. Bye. See you next time.